All right, so welcome again, my friends. My name is Avi Singh, and I like to say that I was maybe an above average Excel user, but I found Power BI and became extraordinary. But hey, we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk Power BI. So yeah, there's no presentation. This is just you and me, just having a chat. And the way it's going to work is I'm gonna ask you to raise your hand. You should have a widget there which allows you to raise your hand. And if once you do, I can unmute you and you can ask a question or give me a comment. And yeah, we can talk about anything and everything under the Power BI sun. So I've seen before that it's kind of hard to ask the first question. I don't know if people are shy or it's okay. So let's see. And so yeah, go ahead, raise your hand so I can unmute you. Or if raise hand doesn't work, some of you may have joined from phone. See if you can type something in the chat window. Yeah, that will work as well. Oh, great, yay. All right, Eric, welcome to the call. How are you doing?
Great, thanks.
All right, where are you calling from?
Calling from Fairfax, Virginia.
Awesome. Yeah, I was working with AOL, and I was in the New York office, but they, of course, had I think they were headquartered in Dulles, Virginia. So yeah, frequent trips in that area. Yeah. All right. So how's it going? What's on your mind?
I probably have an easy question. I have been using Power BI for a few months, can't get enough of it, can't learn it fast enough. My challenge right now is that I'm creating dashboards and really love this stuff, but I work for a financial institution, and so I feel like my options for publishing the information
Yeah.
are limited. And of course, I've heard that there's some things coming down the road, but right now I'm not able to do much with it. I'm using the desktop version, so I'm just wondering, is there anything that I'm missing? Are there any options for me to start getting this out to our organization to start getting some synergy behind that? So I just wanted to
Pretty cool. So tell me, okay, that's great. Publish options limited. And what am I missing? What are my options? You can see I'm really motivated to not put money in that, didn't repeat the question jar. All right, so tell me a little bit more about your role. Gosh, and you can tell me your title, but often the title doesn't say much. So yeah, tell me about your role. You said kind of a finance. Yeah, just tell me about your role.
I'm in marketing. I'm kind of a data analyst, so I analyze our membership and behaviors, and so we can market to them and offer them what they need, and just kind of watch trends and things like that. So, I'm analyzing data. A lot of what I do, is based on tables where we use member number and information that I can't publish out to any sort of web. It's got to stay internal. So that's where my challenge comes.
Okay. All right. So, gosh, I have a few thoughts for you. Okay. All right. Let me pull out my other slide deck. Let me find it. Yeah, this guy. So I love the terminology you're speaking, and I'm not sure. What is your background? How did you stumble into Power BI? Were you a heavy Excel user? Well, that's where I came from, or not? Okay, all right, great.
Yeah, I'm like you. I've used Excel for a while. I'd say I'm above average, but anyone that knows Excel in a company knows that everyone comes to you and thinks you know a lot, and that's kind of where I am. And so I've used Excel, pretty good at Excel, and then came into Power BI and saw
pretty cool. But yeah, so I love the terminology you're using, the way you're thinking. I mean, the way I see it, I mean, this is the holy grail, that you can live in the files. You can live in either the XLSX file or the PBIX file, and you only get so far. And the magic happens when you publish it somewhere. It doesn't have to be cloud, it doesn't have to be PowerBI.com, but that's when the magic happens. A lot of users can consume it. And the analogy I use is video. So imagine if the whole world was still just doing MP4 or whatever, one of those tons of formats, right? And yeah, we were just trying to pass around MP4 files. Gosh, no, right? I mean, nobody does that anymore. I'm sure a lot of younger generation, they wouldn't even know what's an MP4. I mean, I just go to YouTube for my videos. So yeah, we publish it, and now it becomes, gosh, you can consume it at any device, anywhere you want, blah, blah, all of that stuff. So that's what you want for your data. So I'll tell you the options. So if you're concerned about PowerBI.com, if the organization has concern about that, hate sensitive information, then to publish it internally, your best, closest option, similar to that, at least the way Microsoft is positioning it, is, let's see if I can type it. Oh, I can't, great. Is SQL Server Reporting Services. And the new version, I think this is still in what's called, so I don't know, I think the release is still called 2016, and they call it Technology Preview, Community Technology Preview, anyway, acronym. So SSRS 2016 CTB1. If I can open up my browser, where's Chrome? Let's go look at that. But of course, that's why I asked about your role, because, oh wait, CTP 3000, 3.3 now, that's pretty cool. That it's, yeah, I mean, you might need to work with IT on this. Start a technology preview. But this is the option. This is one option. This is what, you know, kind of Microsoft is putting forth. So SQL Server Reporting Services, if you get that set up, and maybe if you're allowed to do it, if you have the ability to do it, you can always set something up on your personal laptop and just see how it works. I would say just download, you know, kind of a trial, pre-release, so you can get it, and it's going to be valid for 180 days. Or ask maybe somebody else who's more into this stuff to try it or set it up for you. Like, hey, just set up a trial for me. And what's happening with SQL Server Reporting Services is almost a complete overhaul. So earlier it looked like this. Actually, James Phillips, the person who leads the Power BI team, and I think he now leads kind of the Microsoft BI team overall. He had joked about SSRS transformation, and he had said that their goal was to make it look like something that was built in this century. But yeah, so it's going through a complete overhaul, and what's happening is they're saying there's going to be paginated reports, which is, you know, Microsoft always comes up with this weird name, but that's okay. So this is kind of the old style reports that always are there in SSRS, you know, with a spiffy look. They're going to spruce it up a bit. That's one. And the next, you're saying you can have Power BI. And the last I checked, you can publish it. And, you know, imagine you publish a PBIX file in there, and you would get reports. But you would not have full PBI.com functionality. So you would not have dashboards. That was a big thing that was missing. And, of course, Q&A and that sort of stuff might be missing too. And then there is more, which makes it slightly confusing. I'm not sure what the last one is officially called, mobile reports. And this really is coming from a company that Microsoft had acquired, DataZen. And this is confusing, at least I find it confusing, because Power BI reports are mobile as well. So these ones can actually be consumed on mobile. In fact, if you were to install a Power BI app on your phone, it'll ask you, do you want to connect to PowerBI.com, or do you want to connect to an SSRS server? So it's pretty cool. All right, so that's kind of the official option. Short of that, I think your options are a little limited if you want to do kind of Power BI reports. Of course, if people are like, I don't really care, if that wasn't a goal, what you could do is an SSAS server is also an option. So SQL Server Analysis Services, and that there you can upload, oh gosh, yeah, that's tricky. It's hard to upload a PBIX model, but you could send a Excel Power Pivot data model over there. And here, you're not going to get Power BI dashboards, but you could get kind of Excel reports off of that, lots and lots of them. So I figured I would just mention, but coming back to it, what I'll say is I'll question, the concern, the statement that, that, oh, I have sensitive data and I can't put it on cloud. I mean, of course, it might be that somebody in the organization has kind of made that decision, but yeah, so I'll say a few things. One, a lot of people, if you ask them, hey, what was there before Salesforce? Do you know what Salesforce replaced? They have no idea. It was Siebel, and they were this on-prem thing and all that stuff, and now, not many people know about it. I mean, Salesforce, that's what people know. And yeah, it's in the cloud. So sometimes it takes time, but we end up there. And another thing which is in the cloud, which people don't realize, and it's got extremely sensitive information, is mail. I mean, fewer and fewer organizations are running Exchange on premises. A lot of them are running Exchange online. So this notion that it's, in fact, I'll even say this. In some sense, the cloud is more secure because they put in more checks and balances. I mean, I'm not a security expert, but did work kind of with those folks when I was in the Microsoft Payments team. And the ironic fact was that a lot of these hacks and so forth, they came internally, right? So cloud or on-prem didn't have anything to do with it. They kind of had an insider or something like that, right? So, so I'll question that, and I'll say if somebody tells you point blank that no, we can never go on cloud, I think they need to be pushed a bit. All right, so that's the best I have. Hopefully this gives you some options. Did that help?
Yes, appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. I'm glad. All right, my friends, so I see a few raised hands. Let's see. Oh, this is pretty cool. How do I do it? Ooh, nice. All right. Pamela, hey, welcome back. How are you doing this week?
Yes, hello. Very good,
Yeah,
very good. Happy Friday.
yeah, it's that day again. Awesome.
That's right. I just kind of had a general question and your thoughts on machine learning and Power BI. I have not used it, so I didn't know your experience with it. If you're seeing other companies use it, have you
Yeah.
found it to be easy to use, helpful, or
Uh-huh.
just your
Good.
thoughts on it?
Yeah, good question. So I can answer part of it. So I haven't used it
Okay,
myself, so I can't say if it's
okay.
easy or not. But I know, so I was working with Microsoft Finance team, and I was building a lot of Power BI stuff for them, man. Pretty fancy. We had role security, all that cool stuff. But I wasn't doing machine learning. And one of the team members there, and this is finance folks, so their job is not IT. Their job is not like all of this BI stuff. And he talked to me about something, Azure machine learning forecasting, and I pretty much shrugged my shoulders. I'm like, I haven't really done that. And a few weeks later, he showed me something, and it was really cool. So he had used Azure machine learning in Excel. So it comes as an add-in, and but frankly, anything that is an add-in in Excel, I find it non-threatening. I find like, yeah, I can do that. And frankly, maybe that's the reason I got started on Power BI, because the firstborn, as I like to call it, was Power Pivot, which was or query was introduced in Excel add-in. So you can get an add-in, let's say Azure Excel add-in, Azure ML. And yeah, so it was lived in Excel, and what they were doing it was, yeah, you can look through that. It was just in Excel, and they were feeding it a set of data. They're saying, hey, I have, let's say, 3 years worth of data. You, Azure ML, project it out for me. And they would get the projection, and yeah, so it was really cool. And they talked to me later that the projection that they got was far more accurate. Uh, so, uh, so what they had done was that he did the Azure ML version, but nobody trusted it because it had never been done before. So they're like, yeah, okay, fine, we'll come up with our own numbers. And turns out the numbers that humans came up with were quite a bit off. I mean, Azure ML was much closer to the mark than that. So that's yeah, that's the best story that I've seen. So I'll say, yeah, this is a great way to go. Maybe I'll dive into it someday. Let's give it a try. See what scenario kind of works for you.
Okay, great.
Yeah, actually, if something does work out for you, like, hey, yeah, this is what I ended up using for, I would love to hear from you about that. Yeah, so just drop me an email and join in a next session. Oh, you know what? So I've been thinking about these sessions. Maybe we'll throw in like a bit of a show and tell. So hey, maybe you come back and next time we'll say, hey, just show us what you did.
Okay, sounds great. Okay,
all right,
thank you.
Good luck. Great. All right, my friends, let's see. Scott. Hey, Scott, how's it going?
I'm doing well, Hoppy. How are you?
I'm great. Where are you calling from?
Atlanta.
Awesome. Okay, great. So what's on your mind?
So I'm currently testing the market for interest in dashboards specific to segment.
Sorry, say that again. Dashboard specific to what?
A healthcare segment, a segment in the healthcare industry.
All right, all right.
And I've built out the dashboard using mock-up data. And before I start kind of putting it out there and saying, hey, would you be interested in this? I'm trying to understand if I get a positive response. And they're like, yeah, great, let's start working on it. I understand how to house and deploy. And I want to do it at a very low cost. And the segment that I'm targeting is one that I think is really hungry for data, but they don't necessarily have the resources or the interest in trying to gather and prepare that data and distribute it on a routine basis. And so that's where I see an opportunity. So along with that, I want to keep it at the free version. Yeah. And I also want to protect the programming that I'm doing, so I don't just say, hey, here's what I did, and it includes all the language. And are you seeing, is that something that Power BI is considering to be able to monetize this product rather than it being purely self-service, but also having that type of consulting relationship or third-party relationship to build products for people on a subscription basis? And what are some of the reporting platforms for that type of model?
Boy, really cool. I love the idea. So I'll give you the best information I have, but I have a feeling that Microsoft is aware of this, and I think maybe they've already released something. It's kind of hard to keep up, or there might be something on this regard. So I'm really thinking one of the options for you, gosh, this is so cool. Actually, I think if you go to Microsoft, this is what they would say. How do I, okay, forget it. So they will talk about a kind of Power BI embedded, but that is, I think, a big deal. So the way that works is you design kind of an app, and when they say an app, really everything is a web app these days. So you design a web app, and of course, if all you're delivering is reports, then the web app is nothing. It's just, they log in, and then inside they see kind of Power BI reports, right? So that's the official option. And since if you do Power BI embedded, you have complete control of the IP. I mean, they just see the reports. They don't see your data model. They don't see your magic recipe. But I will say that I haven't worked with this. I mean, I kind of understand what they're doing, but yeah, I have no experience there. So that might be your final destination. But so I was writing notes as you were speaking, and so of course I kind of run my own business. So I'm focused on this the concept, the idea of minimum viable product. I just want to test it if it works before I pour in, I don't know, 6 months of my life into it or something, right? So
exactly.
I think Power BI embedded may be your eventual destination, but you can take small steps to get there. So for now, it would not completely protect your IP, I think, but let's say, so I'll make some assumptions and you can come back and correct me for later. So let's say you go to, I'm gonna have a dentist appointment coming up, so I'll use that. So I'll go to a group of dentists, somehow all of their offices in the same building, which is kind of cool, and I'll say, hey, I have a product for you, and I'm gonna make it work for you, right? So, and what I'll do is I'll go to powerbi.com and set up accounts for them. And maybe I'll get a domain name like whatever. I'll set it up for them. So I'll say Seattle dentists.com, and I'll give all of them email address, and they'll say, hey, here's a login, here's how you can get into powerbi.com, and in there, actually this might work. You might be able to protect IP. We'll see if my assumptions hold, right? So you give them accounts, and then you you share essentially dashboards and reports with them. That's great, but of course the trick is in the back end. So in the back end, you have, let's say, a PBIX model, and of course the crux of the matter is refresh. Oh my God, refresh, right? How are you going to do refresh? So if I'm assuming that for a lot of these scenarios, you're going to have on-prem data sources, and frankly, almost everybody does. So if you only have cloud resources, let's imagine all of their data is in Azure or OneDrive or something like that, then you don't have on-prem. You just have cloud refresh, and that you can do with the free version. Or if you have on-prem data sources, as per Microsoft, you require Pro, but what I like to do instead of going Pro is I have my clients buy one license of Power Update. Actually, there's a free trial version, so you can start off with that. And what that does is you set it up on a computer, so so it runs on-prem, kind of, right? But then it can publish to PowerBI.com. So it runs on my machine, let's say, refreshes the data, and once it's done, it puts it on PowerBI.com, and yeah, so you can run with free. So gosh, what do you think? Did it sound reasonable? Did I make some assumption like, Avi, no, that's not going to work that way for me?
No, it does. In terms of the on-prem data, part of my, I want to make it as low friction as possible to the client.
Yeah.
So what I would be doing in my offering is saying, look, you set me up as a user in your practice management software. I will go out and pull the data. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yep.
I'll send it back to you to validate it, make sure we're all on the same page. So then that way it can be hosted in the cloud and it can be a service. But what I've seen with sharing externally is the only real option besides doing the setup, like you said, for giving them a unique domain related just to this service is sending it by email. So that could work for distribution by email. It's not ideal.
Yeah.
If they are open as a group to saying, hey, you're going to be able to select every single physician, or in your example, every single dentist in the practice, so everybody will see everybody else's data.
Yeah.
If you're okay with that, and then filtering it when you open it to look at your data or maybe compare yourself, then we can just do one email distribution to an entire group versus having to do a separate email distribution per user, which becomes much more. Then you're getting into the enterprise and saying, whenever it's this person, that they only can see their view, which I think would probably require the pro version.
Maybe, maybe not, but tell me more about email. I mean, they get an email, and what does it have? Does it have a link which they click to open the report, or is it a static report? I mean, you want the interactivity, right?
I think it's a link. I mean, so I haven't seen it myself. I haven't been able to experience it myself, and I'm trying to work with a couple of my fellow MBA alum who are in this space and saying, hey guys, this is what I'm thinking about and getting that experience. So what I've read is that it's a link, and that if that user does not have Power BI, that they have to download it. But I'm not sure if they're downloading access to the service or the desktop.
No.
And then
keep going.
And then what happens again? It comes back to the refresh. So it's great if I can send out a link to one dashboard and work with their IT or administrators or whatever on how to create the shortcut to that link on their desktop or whatever it is. But then a month later, when I give them an updated data, how does that work?
Yeah, okay. So let's talk about it real quick. So typically the way Power BI works right now, and gosh, they change it every week, is that it's easier to share internally, right? So if you're in the same domain, so let's say, Dodino was my dentist, right? So maybe he has dodino.com and he's got a few dentists working for him, and so I don't create logins for them. They have their own login, and I host my report wherever I want. And so I'm obviously.com. So if I send it to Dodi at dodino.com, I'm not going to send it. Maybe that's his real address. And I send it, then he's going to get it in an email. And when he clicks it, it'll bring him to the browser. It doesn't ask you to download. It opens him here, and he has to sign up with that email address that you sent it to, if he hasn't already. Of course, the sign up is a one-time thing. And once he's in, he sees the report, and whenever you refresh it, he sees the most recent data. Now, here's the current difference of sharing internally versus externally right now, right? So this might change, but right now, if I'm sharing internally, if somebody has shared something internally with me, I log into PowerBI.com, and I'll see that right here. I'll see, oh yeah, I see it, that person shared, and it has a different share icon and so forth. If you share it externally, so I'm working on obviously.com, and I send it out to dodino.com. If he logs into PowerBI.com, he's not going to see it. He always has to go back to the link that I sent, which I don't think that's a bad thing. And the link is static. The link doesn't change, and the data, whenever they open the link, they see the latest data, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, you can have their IT say, like, hey, put that link on the intranet site or whatever, right? Or have everybody bookmark it, wherever you go. And yeah, you check it every week, and I'm going to have latest data there. So try it out. I would say try out that email sharing, just, with different accounts and stuff. So that's an option. So for this one, I had an idea. If you do end up, if you run into trouble here, I think this might work, but just to, going to throw it out, that if you have something like this, maybe you can set up something generic. So what I've done is you can do something generic. So you don't have to keep getting domain names. You can get subdomain names. So let's say I work with dentists, so I can make dentist.com, and then I can make nurses. So you can, I misspelled that. Right, so if you're going that route, you can just get one domain name and keep creating subdomain and email addresses with that subdomain for a set of clients. All right, so gosh, I think you're on to something. This is pretty cool. I'm glad that it feels like you can make it work without going Power BI embedded, so which is good, because I wouldn't have been able to help you with anything there. So I try this route, try the email sharing, see how that goes.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
All right. Hopefully that helped. Oops. Oh gosh. Sorry. I think I unclicked somebody's hand. Hey, if you had raised your hand, do that again for me. So I'm gonna go to. Okay. Perfect. 1 second. Okay. Sorry about that. Hey, Jason, how are you doing?
Doing all right, yourself?
I'm doing great. So tell me, where are you calling from?
Madison Heights, Michigan.
Awesome. Okay. What's on your mind?
So,
Let's see.
I've been working with Power Pivot, Power BI for 3 years-ish, and Excel for a while before that.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's my daily job right now. I'm in charge of analytics for a car dealership chain. So, including everything, service, sales, finance,
Okay. So what dealership are you talking about?
We're called Cartwright.
Okay. All right. Awesome.
So what I've been struggling with recently is like table relations and direction and cardinality of like the cross filters. So I've started figuring out, like with a date table that relates to another table, 7 different fields using the use relationship and all that. But, I'm starting to get into stuff that's 25, 30 tables big and, multiple of them are related to others and becoming increasingly difficult to keep it all straight and know how each one interacts.
Okay, great. Great question. Love it. So I'll tell you a little bit of my story. Google data. Amazon has it. So I'm an Excel user through and through. I still identify as that. I mean, I've learned Power BI and good at it, I suppose. And yeah, there's some things which don't really come naturally to us. And one of those is structured learning. I mean, Excel had always been, I mean, I've bought books and stuff and read through that, but a lot of that, you just pick it up as you go. And I had a colleague, Greg Weber at Microsoft, and man, he was so awesome. He's this genius guy whose hobby is building and programming robots or something. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he actually did that. So, a really smart guy. And he was reading through this book. Maybe he'd already read it once, but anyway, he started a book club and said, let's do it. It didn't turn out to be much of a book club. It turned out to be us going in there and Greg just teaching us stuff. And I didn't even finish the book. I think something happened. We got kind of disbanded and so forth. Things changed. I got halfway through it. Halfway through it, maybe less than halfway, but that I feel has what made me. I mean, that's been my edge, especially if I looked at all of the other Excel users. I'm like, whoa, I know this stuff, right? I mean, so that felt really cool. So let's see if I can find that article. Power Pro Data Warehouse. Modeling. Let's try that. There we go. So, so I'm not sure if you read this article. I'm gonna do. Yeah. Okay. So, so this I try to summarize the key points. Obviously, so you can do a few things. Actually, yeah. So I'll give you all the options, and you can go from there. So for one, my book. Maybe you already have a copy. Maybe you can get one. So that has data modeling tips interspersed throughout the book. Now we debated it quite a bit. So I wanted a chapter focused on data modeling. It didn't make it. We didn't end up doing it. So it's interspersed throughout the book. So what I did was, you know what? I had kind of that chapter ready anyway. I published this as a blog post. So that's what this is. So this has tips interspersed throughout. This one simply talks about data modeling. So what it talks about is this kind of the stuff that I learned from this book. So yeah, you can if you want to go deeper, yeah, you can kind of go get the book. And again, if you get halfway through, you'll be a part with me. So here, essentially, it talks about this star schema, this concept of star schema, the concept of data table versus lookup tables, which in geek terms they're called
fact and dimension.
Dimensions. Yeah. So if you're keeping it clean, oh, by the way, you already know the lingo. So I think you already have a start on this.
Yeah, so I mean, I understand, relational, OLAP, cube, slicing.
Oh, gotcha, far ahead there. All right.
Within Power BI,
yeah,
it was easier in Power Pivot, and I'm making the switch now to Power BI for the auto refresh and
so
it's become more difficult, I feel, in Power BI.
Okay, so one thing I'll ask you: do you have bidirectional relationships, or are they filtering in both directions, or one? What's kind of your default?
I guess that's what I'm struggling with. I don't really understand what the directions and
so
one or two way.
Frankly, bidirectional filtering is is pretty bad actually, and that was unfortunately the default for Power BI Desktop. Now my understanding is that has changed. There was a lot of noise about that, a lot of complaints, and they have changed it. So it happened to me in January and February. I was recording some videos, and I recorded a video and said, "Oh, look, Power BI defaults to bidirectional," and then somebody commented saying, "No, it doesn't. That's not." I'm like, "Dang it!" So I think they fixed it, which is a good thing. So my advice to you would be to keep things clean. Stay away from bidirectional filtering. It's usually not needed, doesn't work in a lot of cases. So really, bidirectional filtering breaks down immediately as soon as you have more than one data table. Bidirectional filtering is not a concern if you just have a single data table, but clearly you don't. You know, you told me a number of tables, right? So
what is the difference, though? What does bidirectional do as opposed to just a single direction?
So bidirectional. So let me just open up a model. Hold on.
I mean, is it used more for like a one-to-one direct relationship, or?
Well, so relationships are typically one-to-many. I mean, yeah. Hold on, let me get in there. So if you go relationships, and if I click on this guy. Click on this guy. So notice there's a cross filter direction,
Right.
and man, there is very rare scenarios where I use both. It's very specific, and I use it consciously. Oh, this is what I'm doing. That's what I'm using. Otherwise, I think it now defaults to single direction anyway, so that would be the first thing I would do. Just go ahead and change to single direction. And this one is bullshit. You don't have to care about this. This doesn't matter.
Right.
It says it feels like there are three options. No, they're not three options. Just one to many. That's the kind of relationship. One to one is a degenerate form of a one to many relationship, which is it's also one to many because star can mean one, right? So it's bullshit. So don't worry about this.
Right.
So now you have single direction relationships, and the way to understand is that the filters flow in the direction of the arrow. And we have this analogy which we use in the book, which is filters flow downhill. So Rob coined that, and gosh, the first time I heard it, I was beautiful. Of course, the analogy only works if you visually organize your tables so that the lookup tables are at the top and data tables at the bottom, right? So I have this data table. It's kind of hidden, but yeah, you get it. So I organize them visually. Frankly, so when I start working with clients, I open their data model. This is the first thing I do. This is the very first thing I do. I get in there, and their diagram is a mess, and I set it up this way. And like data tables at the bottom, and I make them bigger. That's another trick that I use to kind of really bring it home that, hey, this is a data table. Make them bigger, data table at the bottom, lookup tables at the top, and I'm like, yep, relationships are flowing downhill, downhill, downhill. So what that means is that if you have any measure defined here is going to be filtered by this, and well, as long as it's connected, right? But if you define something here, let's say you're counting the distinct first names or something, right?
Okay.
It's not gonna, the filter is not gonna flow kind of uphill. It's not going to flow that way. So you say, okay, let me see in the month of, you go to the calendar and say 2017 January, how many distinct first names were there in my data? That's not going to work. It's not going to work automatically. You have to do some extra work for that. But again, this scenario is rare. This is very rare. Most of your measures are going to be on your data table. It's called data table for a reason. It holds most of your numeric data, which is fun, which is what you're doing math on. So if you do end up where you need the filter to go uphill, I will point you to my book that has, yeah, I don't think I can actually, yeah, there's a blog post as well. I'll put it up there.
Okay. I think I might have an earlier version of that.
Basketball. Yeah, there we go. So this one kind of talks about that, but book covers it in a lot more detail. So I think that's going to really help you change everything to single direction and try to visually organize this way. I think that helps. It helps surprisingly well. And if you do run into these special corner cases where you want the filter to glow uphill, check the book and check this guy, Basketball Superstars. Okay.
All right, great.
Give that
Thank
a
you.
try. Hopefully that worked. Hopefully
Yep.
that helped. All right. Thank you. All right. Hey, Rob, thanks so much for waiting. Hi there. How's it going?
Hey, how are you? Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. Where are you
Great.
calling from?
I am in Berkeley, California.
Awesome.
And
Okay. How's the weather there? Have to ask. Yeah,
oh,
that's always,
absolutely beautiful. We've gotten a lot of rain, but now it's fantastic.
Okay.
Avi, I thought it was pretty cool. I noticed that we both used to work at Washington Mutual back in the day.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay, that's cool. Where were you? Were you in Seattle or were you elsewhere?
I was in Seattle. Yeah, that's where I used
All
to
right.
live. And I have a bit of BI background. I'm a programmer by trade now,
Uh-huh.
but when I was at WAMU, I did a lot of BI work with business objects,
Pretty
um,
cool.
working
So
with Darwin Schweitzer. Do you remember him?
I do remember him. You kidding me? All right.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
I was
Pretty cool.
really I was really interested when I discovered Power BI, because I used to really love business objects, and I
Hmm.
think Power BI is just incredible. I have to say that. But while I
Hey,
was
hey, yeah, man. Yeah, it is. All right. Yep.
um,
Second that.
but
Go ahead.
my journey with Power BI is that I used to on the side I was working on a startup at WAMU, which I
Hmm.
now am the CEO of here in Berkeley. Um,
Great for you.
and yeah, thank you. And as a strategy, one of the things we've discovered as a software company is that we don't want to be uh, we want to focus on providing value to our customers, and that doesn't mean creating custom reports. And
Hmm.
integrating with Power BI is awesome because we can focus on making really good data sets and let the customer visualize them and slice and dice as they wish
Hmm.
on another platform. The other thing I love about it, and I know this, I actually have a question. I'm just gushing for a second.
No, that's
Um,
okay. This is talk Power BI.
yeah, no, but I do. But as a vendor, I love the fact that there's a pretty clear separation between a desktop version with an on-prem environment, but
Hmm.
a smooth transition to the cloud.
Hmm.
We are a cloud-only subscription software provider,
Nice.
mostly selling to enterprise, Fortune Global 1000.
Hmm.
So, the cloud version is perfect. I can have a customer log in, connect to a data set, and just go. Obviously, I mean, I'm not doing that right now because that leads me into my question. um, so we're really interested in, of course, becoming a vendor, publishing data sets. I forget what the terminology is called. I'm sorry.
Connector.
Um, no.
So,
Anyway,
yeah, keep going.
go ahead. Oh, content packs. Sorry, content packs. Are you
Okay.
familiar with those?
I am.
Yes. So I was just wondering if you've had any experience working with vendors to create content packs, and if you had any commentary around how long it takes and what's involved in building those.
Okay. I'll actually switch topics on you.
Sure, that's
So
okay.
it sounded like that you're like, hey, I give them a solution. So your
Yes.
solution is it's not BI. You're selling them something else which makes their life better. It's cloud-based. But then, of course, they would love to have reporting on it, and you're like, I don't want to get into that. That's not my core focus,
Yep.
right? I wanna empower you to do that yourself. So I think what you need to do is somehow allow them to connect to you, right? So
Yes.
so Power BI team releases a connector once every week. Apparently, it's crazy. It's just insane. So you can do a few things. You can either there are these generic ways. There's XML, so maybe you can provide, or I don't know. Frankly, yeah, this is out of my depth a little. Oh, data feed or something. So maybe you can
Hmm.
write onto one of these generic kind of options. Say, hey, customer, here's a secure XML feed for you, or here's an O data feed for you, and
Yep.
just connect to it, suck it in. That's it. So you don't have to do anything special. If that works, great. If not, then you might have to reach out to Microsoft team and say, hey, I want you to have a connector. But think about it. So if you do, so man, I don't know.
Well, can I add one
If there
thing?
was a specific connector for that your company's name, that would be so cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think I hear you. One thing that's kind of cool about the content pack route is you get a really smooth authentication step using OAuth, so the customer can just get a little screen. I'm sure anybody that's listening has probably done this before, where you're giving one app permission to connect to another app, right?
And yeah, the API key or something. Yeah, okay.
Well, with OAuth, what's cool is they can go within our app at any point and see a list of all the places they've given access and revoke it without having to go into the other app, right? So that's one nice feature. The other thing that's kind of cool is you end up pushing data via the API layer as opposed to like a database layer that might be a little lower in our stack. So then all the business logic that we've built through going through the application would still apply. So anyway, I'm open to your idea, and not to talk about competitors, but Tableau, that was their approach, was actually creating a connector on their server and going.
Okay. So I actually realize you have other options too. So the challenge with connectors is that you give them a connector and they start off with a blank sheet. They don't have any tables, and they go get data, and they get some data. And man, I mean, so I don't know how your system is, but I've tried to connect to like Dynamics and stuff, and it's a mess. And you spend ages trying to figure out what it is. So I think the next level that these people are offering are kind of these solution templates. And I'm not sure how this button appeared new. This is very, very new. It appeared in the latest release. But you don't have to rely on this, whatever this thingamajig is. Okay, great. It's just a link there. So maybe you can get featured here. But even if you're not featured here, you can save something as a template. So you can imagine you connect to a mock data set of your own company, and again, the format is going to be exactly the same. I'm assuming that, hey, that data set, the customer data set, I mean, they're going to have different data, but the table structure or whatever is going to be the same. So you build your solution to a mock data set, save it as a template file, and just give it to them and say, hey, here. And now it's got these fancy graphs and all that stuff and all the coolness built in, and all they have to do is just change one thing. And you can do that. The change, you can do that by parameters. So let's go in edit query. So have you played with parameters?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so let's say you say manage parameters, new parameters, and I don't know what it's going to be for you, but API key or something, right? And hit OK, and something. Gosh, it's very insistent. And your template goes to them. And in here, oh my gosh, I swear there was a way to, where is parameters? Okay, you might have to look it up, but I swear it was somewhere here where you could set the parameter. Okay, I can't find it now. But yeah, so essentially you can say, hey, here's a template, and the parameter is in there, and when they refresh it, it might ask them, it might prompt them for the parameter values, and like, let's see what it does in refresh now, not for me. Okay, so clearly I'm not doing something right, but so between, it sounds like you already have a way they can access through some kind of feed, which is great. Maybe you build them a template file which looks awesome, and say, yep, just change your key, and boom, it's your data now.
Yes. Yeah, and just to take us out, the one nice thing about the content packs, of course, is marketing. You can show off that you have a listing there and partner with Microsoft.
So content packs, my understanding is completely different. So my understanding of content pack is something that I package to share within an organization. So what we were doing was working for Microsoft, large company, and there are a lot of people around. So what I would do is I would say create content pack, and I would pick, package some things in there. So I'd say, yep, this dashboard, this report, this data set, and publish, and then people within my organization would consume that. I don't even know if if there is anything here which can go kind of outside your organization. So yeah, I'm not sure about that. Content pack, I feel, or kind of, at least the way I've used them was very different.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I can look into it more. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you later. All right, my friends, we went through all the raised hands. That was awesome. But hey, if you thought of something, so Scott had some comments. Let me see if so Jason, I think we talked about that. Can free. Okay, so Scott. Okay, so I think most of the comments we talked about. So Scott was asking about free Power BI dashboards. We talked about that. But Scott had this comment. Avi, I recall seeing an Excel add-in somewhere that allows seeing DAX formula effects on pivots. Are you aware of this Excel add-in? So are you asking where you are building the model in Power BI, but you want a pivot table connected to it, an Excel pivot table? I do that all the time. Yeah, you can just type it in. But was that, so I'm just trying to understand your question. So you said Excel add-in to allow DAX formula. Actually, you know what? Let me just unmute you. All right, there you go, Scott. So yeah, so help me understand your question better.
Or yeah, maybe. it was sure. So it was just a video series I was looking at, and they were explaining. The reason I asked this question is when it came up around an earlier question and how filters interact, and it reminded me of something I'd seen where there was a demonstration of this Excel add-in. It might have been a SQL Studio add-in or something like that, but
yeah,
it allowed you to look at when you write in DAX formulas in Excel using a pivot table data set, how that interacts, how it creates the subset of tables, and that's part of this whole Power BI thing that I'm still wrapping my head around, is that the formulas are actually creating their own unique data tables, and just kind of just really allowed a neat way of seeing it as you're playing with it and understanding kind of without seeing it in a chart and what's working and not working, and just seeing it kind of live.
That's I'm glad you asked that. So Excel add-in, there are a few, but as you were talking about this, what popped in my head was DAX Studio. So the way at least I used it, it's not a add-in. Maybe it comes in as an add-in as well. So I launch it, and right now I'm going to connect it to Power BI model. And it's all good. I mean, Power BI and Excel Power Pivot, they have the same thing underneath. And that's an excellent point if somebody's having trouble kind of understanding it. And you have to get past a little bit of hiccups. But essentially, yeah, you can write DAX here. Yeah, so you can say filter calendar here. So yeah, you can do things like this. I'm not sure if it's text or not. Is it text? And examine exactly what's going on, and kind of what you're getting. So of course, I'm showing you very simple examples, but imagine you have a complex formula. You can break it down in steps and just execute step by step. Okay, I got this, and if you really want to dive in, you can change the output to a file and then kind of open it in Excel and say, okay, I got this, and what do I do? Am I getting more rows than I expect, or less rows, or something like that? Good tip there. So DAX Studio, maybe it's an Excel add-in as well. I just use it as a kind of a standalone and connect to the model.
Yep, that was it. Thanks.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, Jason typed in as well. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Jason. Awesome. All right, folks. Great. Oh boy, we're pretty close to the 10 o'clock mark. Gosh, so great. But hey, I certainly love talking about Power BI. So if you have any other questions, I know we're kind of on the mark, but I'll be happy to stay on. If you have any other questions, thoughts, comments, something you want to talk about, yeah, just raise your hand. All right, so we have one more question. Hello, Jay. That's all I have. How are you doing?
Okay, a very newbie question. I have
Okay.
a table with people who have hired and termed. I wanted to have one filter, or let's say I would have a month, and one filter that actually addresses two graphs that shows
Mm-hmm.
the number of people who left and the number of people who came in. I'm uncertain how to set that up.
Okay. So you,
I've had to do
oh
a
gosh,
filter for each one, as opposed to a single.
pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right. So let me make sure I understand it. So you have one table, you said, of people.
Right.
Okay. And it has people coming in and going out. So tell me a little bit about the fields. I mean, is it like, person, and that can be an ID or a name, and it's like, I don't know, like
Well,
date
I have a
in,
date.
date out.
I have a date field. I have one date field coming
Okay.
in date field and one date field going out.
Okay. Got it. Got it.
So,
Got it.
for example, I'll have a
Date
list.
in, yeah.
5 people will leave in September. 3 people came in that same month. I want to be able to say this month or this date in a single filter, as opposed to having multiple filters.
And the report you want to be able to show what people. So somebody. I'm just going to go out on a limb, and you can correct me, and I can backtrack. So let's say that if somebody says, "Ooh, tell me about let's say 2017 January," and you can say 5 people joined, came in, and 3 people left, went out. Is it something like that?
Correct.
Perfect. All right, my friend. I think this is doable. Let's make this, give it some room. So you have a single table, which is good. A lot of times people split the tables up, and however you were doing it in Excel, a single data table is good. So what I would do, so date in, date out. Perfect. Okay. Let me see if I can show you. And we're going to have to pretend a little bit. But here, what I have is I have sales data, but imagine this is your person data, okay?
Right.
We're going to do role play, just like kids. So this is your person data, and this has 2 dates. And in our case, let's say order date is in, ship date is out. This is when they join, this is when they leave. And then you want to connect it to a calendar table. So far, I have never built a model which didn't have a calendar table. For me, well, it has so many uses, it gives you so much flexibility. So really, if I have a date in my data model, which has been the case for the models I worked with so far, I have a calendar table. Okay, so you put the calendar table, and then you can say, so let's just do, this is going to be fun. So we're going to say, I'm going to say a sales count, but in your case, it's going to be a person count. And this is going to be simply, there are no duplicates, right? If one person only appears once in your table, or can they appear?
Only appears once, yes.
Whew, thank God. I don't know what I would do otherwise, but it probably wouldn't make sense then. So sales count is just count of rows, and you got that. So let's go, where did I end up with that? Sales count, awesome. I'll make it a giant table. So you have that, and let's throw some commas in there. Nice. And you can obviously see it by, oops. So now if I say calendar, year, slicer, month, slicer, something like that. Or, we can do this with here, all good. And I can get a count of people, but I don't really want a count of people. I want to see a count of people coming in or going out. So actually, let me take that back. So So here, when you have two keys essentially, right? Two dates and only one calendar table. What I did was let me start afresh. So I tried to relate both of them to my calendar table. So I said order date, connect to the calendar date, and that creates it, and it's active. So that means it's really working based on the first date right now, right? So the answer that I'm getting, 193, is really people coming in, right? Does that make sense?
Right.
And then I'll go and relate with the other date, but it's going to stay inactive. You'll see this dotted line. It's not active, so nothing changed in my data. I still get the same answer. So to get the other answer, it's like, no, I don't care about date 1. I care about date 2. I want to use that. You can say new measure, and I'll say sales count by date 2, date out, something like that. Date out, yeah, it's ship date, so it kind of makes sense even with our data. So date out, and you will say calculate sales count, perfect, right? And then you will just use this function use relationship to activate that other relationship. And all it takes as parameters are both sides of the relationship. So the relationship is really based on ship date, that's my second date, date out, and calendar date. So you specify both sides of the relationship, doesn't matter which order, and that's it. And we're done. And if we put it here, so you can see that, yeah, I mean, and yeah, it would work. So of course you can kind of validate it. You can pull a sample, small set of data in Excel or something and just kind of validate it. But that would be your pattern, I think.
Okay. I'll have to give it a go.
Yeah. So actually, that was a pretty cool question. I mean, it wasn't one of those, oh yeah, gosh, that's, you know, some of this, right? So that was kind of involved. Pretty cool.
Thank you.
All right. Glad that helped. Okay, I see Scott. Hey, did you have another question or comment, Scott?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for hosting the call. This has been very informative, and just wanted to see if there was any interest among other callers in sharing contact information to be able to discuss Power BI questions or experiences or bounce things off of each other offline.
Yeah, gosh, so I have good, I'm glad you brought it up. So I've been thinking about it. So lately, so I've been actually running a training class. It's a beta class I'm running, and when I was running it, I wanted to have some kind of a group where people could get together. Facebook, yeah. And I debated between LinkedIn, which probably, was my first instinct, kind of official and all that stuff, but I ended up with a Facebook group, and I have to say I'm really liking it. So my idea has been to do something similar for this talk call. Talk Barbie, and there's nobody there. Oh wait, maybe they're busy now. Great. So yeah, so I'm glad you brought it up. Maybe that'll spur me in that direction. And I think it's going to be cool. So forget the delivery mechanism for a bit. Forget if it's LinkedIn or Facebook. But the way I was thinking about it was, of course, people come in, they hear other stories, and like, oh, that was pretty cool. Or, hey, I have a brilliant idea that could help that guy. And some kind of a group or a forum can help them kind of reconnect. And the other thing that I was thinking was, gosh, I do it Fridays. What if you have a question on Tuesday and so some kind of community. So maybe I'll take some action on that. So Scott, if it's okay, if you want to share, I can share your last name. So I stick to first names, but I can just throw out your name and say, hey, look you up on where is it easiest to find you? LinkedIn?
Yeah. My name is Scott Ferguson. Look me up on LinkedIn. If you search it for CFO. Yeah, MBA together, that seems to pop up.
Chart capture, is it?
Scott Ferguson?
Yeah, is a company called Shark Capture?
No, Intra Health Group.
Oh, okay, I'm glad.
INTRA Health Group. Yeah, there's a few of us out there.
Yeah.
Ferguson's.
I was listening to this talk. Gosh, okay, I'll reach out to you. Can I connect?
Yeah, that's it.
Perfect. All right. Hey, thanks. That's great. That's terrific. What was I going to say? Yeah, I was watching this TED Talk, and this person had gone through obituaries. It was funny. It was kind of a data talk. So yeah, there was a data. He owned a data company, and they had gone through like 2,000 obituaries and analyzed data from that. And he was doing kind of a word analysis, and he showed a word graph, and the biggest word was John. So he said, "Hey, if you're John, you're big in the obituary business or something." Anyway, so plenty of Scots out there. All right, folks, I'm going to do the last call on questions. I lost my thing. Okay. All right, so Scott, I'm going to put you back on mute. All right, my friends, so last call. If you have anything, speak now. Otherwise, hey, there's always next Friday. All right, pretty cool. So yeah, this is recorded. We're gonna put it up on YouTube, so you can. That I've been meaning to do that, so you can get back to it later on and so forth. So yeah, thanks for joining. I'll see you guys later.